A classroom, 30 students, one teacher, and in the back row, a kid quietly decides, I'm just not smart. No one hears it. No one writes it down. But that single sentence can shape the next 10 years of their life. Not because it's true, but because the system around them made it feel true. That's where educational psychology begins. Right now, education is louder than ever. More courses, more apps, more topper strategies. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of it focuses on what to teach. Almost none of it questions how humans actually learn. And that gap is expensive. In time, in confidence, in wasted potential. Because learning isn't just information transfer. It's a psychological process. Messy, biased, emotional. Ignore that, and you don't just slow learning, you break it. Let's start with something simple. Two students study the same chapter for 2 hours. Same book, same teacher, same classroom. One remembers 70%. The other forgets almost everything the next day. Why? It's not intelligence. It's not effort. It's how their brain processed the information. Educational psychology studies exactly this invisible layer. Attention, memory, motivation, emotion. The mechanics behind learning. And those mechanics follow patterns. For example, attention. The average student's focused attention span during a lecture, about 10 to 15 minutes before it starts drifting. Yet most classes run for 40 minutes or more. So what happens? For half the class, the brain is physically present, but mentally gone. Still, quiet, nodding, learning nothing. And we call that teaching. Now zoom into memory. There's something called the forgetting curve. Within 24 hours, people forget up to 50 to 70% of new information if it's not actively reinforced. That means if a student studies today and never revisits the material properly, most of it is already gone by tomorrow. Not because they're lazy, because the brain is designed to forget. It's efficient, brutal, selective. Educational psychology doesn't fight this reality, it works with it. Spacing, retrieval, repetition. Small adjustments, massive difference. But here's where it gets more uncomfortable. Let's talk about belief. There's a phenomenon called the self-fulfilling prophecy. If a student believes they're bad at math, they avoid practice. Less practice leads to worse performance. Worse performance confirms the belief. Loop complete. Now, here's the twist. In some studies, teachers were told certain random students were gifted. No real difference, just labels. By the end of the year, those students performed better. Why? Because expectations changed behavior. Slightly more attention, slightly more patience, slightly more belief. Tiny inputs, huge outcomes. Educational psychology exposes these invisible forces. Not talent, not luck, expectations. Now let's talk motivation. Everyone says students should be disciplined, but discipline is the final stage of a system, not the starting point. The brain runs on rewards, dopamine. If learning feels like punishment, the brain resists it. If learning feels like progress, the brain chases it. This is why gamified apps work, why small wins matter, why immediate feedback beats delayed results. Educational psychology doesn't ask why aren't students trying harder. It asks why does the system make effort feel unrewarding? That's a very different question. Now, step back and look at the system. Standard classrooms assume same pace, same method, same evaluation. but cognitive abilities vary massively. Some students are visual learners, others process better through sound or practice. Some need repetition, some need challenge. Yet the system moves like a conveyor belt. Miss one concept and everything after it becomes harder. Not because the student failed, because the system didn't adopt. Educational psychology challenges this rigidity. It says learning should be designed, not assumed. Now, here's the part no one likes to talk about. Grades. They look objective, precise, clean, but they often measure performance under pressure, not understanding. A student might memorize just enough to pass, forget everything a week later. Score A. Another student might deeply understand concepts but struggle with time pressure. Score C. Same subject, completely different realities. Educational psychology questions what we're actually measuring, because if the metric is flawed, the entire system built on it becomes questionable. And now the bigger picture. We're entering a world where information is everywhere. AI can explain concepts instantly. Videos can teach faster than textbooks. So the value is shifting. It's no longer about access to knowledge. It's about the ability to learn efficiently, independently, continuously. And not ability is psychological. Focus, curiosity, memory, adaptability. If education ignores these things, it produces students who know things temporarily, but can't learn effectively long term. That's a dangerous gap. There's an irony here. We spend years inside education systems without ever being taught how learning itself works. No one explains your own brain to you. You're just expected to perform. And when you don't, you assume the problem is you. Educational psychology flips that assumption. Sometimes the problem is the method. So here's the real question. If a system can quietly convince millions of students that they're not capable, not because they lack ability, but because they were taught in a way their brain couldn't process, then what exactly are we measuring? Intelligence or adoption to a flawed system? And more importantly, how many people have already decided they're not smart when they were never actually taught how to learn?